You're listening to 91 Reasons, a journey into the twisted landscape of pop culture. Keep your hands and arms inside the podcast at all times. And now, the voice, Jeff Tucker.
Hey everybody, welcome back. It's another car episode. We're now at the other dentist office where Rachel's having her teeth worked on. So I am going to sit here while she's getting her procedure and do an episode because that's a great use of my time. I got nowhere else to go. How many times can you walk around Target? They have nothing to offer. No collectible toys, no anything. How's the light here? It's pretty bad, right? What's this half moon thing I got going here? Anyways, what's been going on? How you doing? I'm caught up on WandaVision, not to beat a dead horse. I read all these amazing articles about how great this show is and all the twists and turns that it takes. And I'll tell you what, man, if you like this show, God bless you. I wish I could be you because I do not get the joke on it. It's very tedious. They only move the needle this far every episode, like nothing happens. We're 7 episodes in out of 9. There are 2 episodes left in this show, and we still don't know what the plot is. 7 episodes in, and no indication of what the plot is. I ask you, what is the plot of WandaVision? Originally, we thought it was Wanda is so distraught over the loss of the Vision that she stole his body after 5 years and decided to bring him back to life in her own fantasy world, which is not a bad premise for a show. But last week's episode decided that's not the premise of the show, that somebody named Agatha, who is a witch in the Marvel Universe, has been doing something controlling all of this. That's not a big enough twist for me. That's not a big enough twist at all because it still doesn't explain what's happening in the show. And I can only take this in the dark crap for so long before I'm just done with it. I need to know what's happening on the show and why I'm watching what I'm watching. Even I'll go back to the granddaddy of all these, Lost. Even Lost gave us crumbs to keep going. Here's what's happening. Here's why this is. Here's what that is. You know, by the end, they were so full of their own mythos that they just screwed the pooch on the ending. It's very rare that a show has, nails the ending. Game of Thrones blew it. Lost blew it. It's hard to live up to shows like MASH, that just nail the ending right. Or even, last year, the year before, Watchmen, I thought was great. I enjoyed Watchmen. And Watchmen had a lot of mystery to it. It had a lot of, we're not going to tell you what's going on until later. Hang on. It's going to make sense. Here's the explanation of this one. Here's a new mystery. I think that's the problem I have is that I grew up on episodic television where there might have been an overarching storyline, but each of the episodes had its own story. The biggest example of that is Star Trek The Next Generation. They have the Borg overreaching story, the Romulan overreaching story, but individual stories in the series. Picard had none of that. Each episode of Picard was just another scrap of this long, convoluted, frankly, really dumb story about space tentacles that are going to come out of a hole and grab everybody, so only the robots are going to live. I have no idea. Stupid. I mean, I do know what it is. It's not my job to explain something that stupid. If I had to go around explaining Alex Kurtzman plots to everybody, that's all I would do, because the guy just doesn't write anything cohesive. He is a prime example of failing up. But WandaVision has everybody in love. All their reviews are just gushing about all of the nuance and flavor, and I'm like, that's great. What's the plot? You can write, if I wanted to write a novel of just cool things happening and never explain why they're happening, that's easy. I'll write a script where a dinosaur walks down Hollywood Boulevard. At the same time, a magician pulls 1,000,000 rabbits out of his hat. But a good writer connects them so that you, the audience member, feels like your time has been well spent. I'm not sure I feel that with WandaVision. And they finally did an after credit sequence because, the after credit sequences for the Marvel Universe started in 2008. So that's right in line with where WandaVision is in its timeline of sitcoms, because the last episode was Modern Family. I'm not enamored with this show at all. I want to be. I keep tuning in, hoping I'm going to have this mind-blowing revelation, much the same way I did with Watchmen, the TV show Watchmen, which I watched Watchmen like this with my arms folded. This is going to suck. I'm going to hate this. How dare they not make a faithful adaptation of the greatest comic book ever written? Oh, wait, it's actually very good. It actually has some interesting ideas, and it takes risks. WandaVision is just silliness. It's just silliness. It's like you've tuned into Nick at Night in the early 90s, and it's just one sitcom stacked on each other from different time zones, different time eras. And it's not... Here's the thing. They're going to end up explaining what Agatha's deal is, why she's doing this to Wanda. What is her goal? Is it to get Wanda to say something that she wouldn't normally say, except maybe just to the Vision? Is it so they get the Vision's body they could have already had? That why reanimate the Vision and give him all his powers in this bubble if you're not going to do anything with them? Is it so that they'll make Wanda so agitated that she'll attack the army that's waiting outside? I don't know. I mean, they've already done that. That would have been the finale of the show, where they try to attack the bubble and Wanda says, "You can't take my fake reality away." And then Wanda kills all the military guys, including somebody of great importance. And then Agatha appears and is like, "I meant to do that." I don't know. It doesn't seem like they have anything like that up their sleeve. They hinted in the next preview that Doctor Strange is going to make an appearance. So maybe the Reality Stone or the Time Stone has something to do with all that. But that's such a Ghost in the Machine explanation, in that you can have all of this crazy stuff happen and then wave your arm and go, "It was just a god doing it." That pardon my language, that shit went out in the Roman times, the Greek times, I mean. You know, Doi Machina's older than the hills, and it was retired for a reason. The only time stuff like that, I mean, imagine if WandaVision ends like Time Bandits. Because in Time Bandits, evil is about to take over everything, and God just shows up and goes, No. I can't have all this. This is too much chaos. Let's get rid of all this. And he just, everything gets waved away. But it works in Time Bandits. And it would, Terry Gilliam should sue if Doctor Strange floats in and goes, "It's all back to normal, Wanda." But then, I mean, then you have the tragedy of Vision's dead body, right? And the one time we've seen on the show was pretty startling when he turned and he was all dead. So I don't know. I have theories of where it's going. I've given you a couple. I'll be shocked if they come up with anything that clever. I don't think they have it in them. I think they're so in love with this sitcom framing device. It ended, right? There's no more sitcoms. Now that Agatha's revealed that she has some sort of medieval dungeon under her house, which I thought was the archway in Kosovo where Ultron was sitting on his throne, because that's what it looked like to me. It looked like a scene right out of Age of Ultron. So maybe I'm right. I don't know about that. But what are they going to do at the end here? Maybe something. Hopefully it's something good. But I don't know. I really don't know. I don't think you can bring the Vision back into the Marvel Universe. The guy's dead. If nobody ever dies in the Marvel Universe, then it's not exciting. You have to have characters. I mean, that's what made Game of Thrones so enthralling was the characters you like could be dead at any time. We never knew who was going to make it to the end to sit on the Iron Throne. You know, when they killed what's his name? The Prince, Sean Bean's son, who was supposed to be the big hero. They killed him in the Red Wedding. That's a big turning moment of, oh, anything's possible. The same thing happened in Westworld when they shot Anthony Hopkins in the head. Boy, that show went off the rails. There was a third season of Westworld. It just occurred to me the other day, and I'm like, I totally missed a whole season of Westworld because they simply made it so I don't care about the characters. Why would I tune in for another story arc of characters I don't want to spend any time with? That's unfortunate. And that's not to say that evil characters aren't interesting, because some of the best characters on TV have been the bad guy. The bad guy's always very interesting. But in Westworld, they gave you nobody to root for at all. Well, we'll see how it unfolds. There's 2 more episodes left. I hope they're longer. I hope the episodes of WandaVision are longer. Not that, I mean, I must be a masochist, right? Because I'm telling you I don't like the show, and I'm hoping the episodes are longer. I just hope they take their time and actually come up with something, explain something really amazing, and then wrap it up and, I don't know, have Tony Stark make an appearance. If all the dead characters are coming back, have Tony Stark show up and, you know, in his Iron Man suit, and you do that, the salute like in the Mandalorian when the guy in the jetpack flies by and he's like, I gotta get me one of those. Well, I watched a movie this week. I want to talk about it now that I've got the WandaVision crap out of the way. This is a great movie. I brought it with me. You ever seen Moscow on the Hudson? Robin Williams, 1984, directed by Paul Mazursky. You gotta go look at that. Is it backwards? This is a strange movie. I picked it up at the thrift store. There's a little tip I need to give you before I get rid of this. When you're at the thrift store and you're looking at movies, because it's what I do. I spend half an hour or longer looking at the movies at the thrift store. The DVD case, if it's solid like this, that means it's probably hard to get movie. And I don't mean valuable, but hard to get. Because these thick cases went out of fashion years ago. When you open them up now, they have that recycling symbol. So that means that pieces of the case have been cut out, and the cases are very flimsy. But if it's a real thick case like this, that means this is from its first run. So I'm always tapping the cases like a crazy person. Hold on, my camera's overheating. I had to move to the shade. I was sitting over there across the street thinking, well, the light will be so much better. And it must have been awful. Like, I look like David Bowie with that thing on my face. And my phone's never given me an announcement, a notification that I'm overheating. And I was like, I don't use my phone enough for it to overheat. I've seen Rachel's phone probably overheat because her apps are turned up as bright as they can be. It's like, oh my God. But I don't use my phone that much. So anyways, Moscow on the Hudson. Where were we talking about? Talking about the density of the case, right? So I saw this movie in the theaters. It's not an understatement to say that I saw a lot of movies in the theater. A lot. When I was young, and then especially as a teenager, I went to the movies more than anything else. That's what I did. But I was 12, and I went and saw Moscow on the Hudson. And I remember my mental image of this movie. I'd only seen it in the theater, and then when I saw it this week. So I've only seen it twice. But I can remember as a 12-year-old being very disappointed in the movie because it's not funny. It's not a comedy. But it was marketed as a comedy. The commercials are all Robin Williams acting wacky, like he's at McDonald's. You know, have a McThis and a McThat, and he's selling like those glasses with the springs that bop down, and he's like, I sell crazy stuff, and he's basically doing the highbrow version of Yakov Smirnoff, who apparently is in the movie somewhere, and I never saw him. He's like, oh, what a country, you know. But the movie was marketed as a comedy. If you watch the trailer like I did, it looks funny. it's a funny movie. It is not a funny movie. It has moments of lightness, but it's not really a comedy at all. It's a very strange movie. I didn't think they made a lot of these past the 70s. It's basically a 70s throwback film that just happened to be made in the 80s. Where it has to sit squarely because it's about the Cold War. It's about relations between Russia and America to this degree, but only in so much as it's the depiction of Russia that we got here in America that was partially true, and I don't know how untrue it was. The movie was made by Paul Mazursky, who was basing it off of his Russian immigrant family who came to America. And it's a love letter to what it means to immigrate to America. The same way that, what's his name? Barry Levinson made Avalon, which is the same type of movie about immigrants coming to America. That's a great story. That's a wonderful story about, escaping the bonds of wherever you are to come to a better place. And what's interesting about the movie and why I call it a 70s throwback is it doesn't follow film structure. At the 30-minute mark, nothing amazing happens. It's much longer than that. There's no big overflowing plot other than Vladimir, played by Robin Williams, his life. He's not trying to do anything. He's not trying to accomplish anything. There's no protagonist other than the KGB guys at the beginning, but they're not much of a protagonist. They're the catalyst for him to want to leave. But in the movie, he plays a saxophonist in the Russian circus, the Moscow circus, and he lives in a small apartment with a lot of people. His mother, his father, his sister, his grandfather, and they eat around this small table. And the grandpa bitches about the government, and they tell him not to. And he lives this very movie-esque Soviet Union socialist life. And it's why I have always been raised to believe the way that I believe. The depiction of Russia in the 80s is not a pretty place at all. He goes to a line. He doesn't even know what the line is for. And he gets in line to be able to buy whatever they're selling. He hopes it's toilet paper. It turns out it's shoes. So he buys shoes that he doesn't need because he can use them to barter for things in other ways. And he uses them to barter his way onto the trip to New York. Because the whole troupe is going to New York to perform. And it's this big honor. But before they can go, they are given propaganda speeches about the decadence of Western culture and how they can't be seduced by it and how they must be strong Russians and support the Communist Party. And it's all played in a way that you're completely sympathetic for Vladimir and you hate the Communist Party. And that's an easy leap for me because I believe in freedom. And he has a friend, and it's a very, very, very good character actor. He played the same part or the same Russian part in Air Force One. He's been in a million movies, always plays the Russian. Great actor. I don't know his name. But playing against type, Robin Williams is the serious one who plays the saxophone, and his friend is a clown in the circus. You'd think they would have flipped that, but guys like Robin Williams, who rose to fame on television playing a silly character like Mork, always yearned to do something more important. He finally got his Oscar for Good Will Hunting. But you can see the seeds are being laid here, and let's tell the audience it's a comedy starring Robin Williams. And when they get to the theater, they'll actually discover that it's a serious movie about defecting to America and the immigrant experience in America, not just Russian immigrants, but Cuban immigrants, Italian immigrants, and people who do feel lost here in America. So his friend, the clown, tells him he's going to defect. And Robin Williams is like, you can't tell me that. If you tell me that, I have to turn you in. And there's a lot of nervousness in the film and scare and fear about people are going to turn you in. You can't just do what you want in Russia. You know, he's got a girlfriend, Vladimir, that he takes to his friend's apartment to have sex with, and his grandfather says things about the government, and it all comes to a head when the KGB grabs him and says, look, you're going to spy for us. We know what's been going on. We know your friend's going to defect, and you're going to tell us what you know, or your grandpa's going to be committed to a mental asylum, an institution. You're never going to see him again. And it scares him, and it scares you, the audience member, because the idea that someone can come into your house and just take someone you know away, someone you love and care for, just take them away and then they're gone. That's terrifying. You'd rather you say, look, take me. I'll go. Don't take my grandfather. So you see the predicament he's been put in. And every time his friend makes these allusions to defecting, you can see Vladimir just freak out. Like, you have to stop. You're going to get us both thrown in jail forever, where you never get out. You're in a gulag in Siberia and you never get out. So when they get to New York, you get a really good montage of guerrilla filmmaking in New York, where they did it without a permit. They just drove around with a camera and they captured New York in 1980, probably, late 82, 83, and just filmed people. And those are such amazing snapshots of life in America. I said the same thing about The Last Dragon in 85. It's great when you have that kind of B-roll footage that can be archived and go, look, movies and TV are one thing and music is one thing, but actual footage of what people lived like in these times that's priceless. And a lot of the footage of New York in the 80s is really good in this film. In fact, the whole movie looks great, and it's very much a love letter to New York and all of the things you can do. And it's going to fall apart at the end with a little bit of drama. But Vladimir has conversations with people about what it means to be Russian. His English is not so good. And when they finally are about to end the trip at Bloomingdale's, this is where his friend's going to make his stand. He's going to fly like a bird. He cannot wait. He can't do it. He's terrified. The KGB have him terrified beyond measure, and he cannot bring himself to defect. And what's interesting about the film is that they've laid a little bit of the groundwork. You know Vladimir is going to defect or there's no story, because it opens with him on the bus helping out a fellow immigrant. But there's no aha moment where he decides to defect. There's no, I'm going to do it for this reason or that reason. In a typical studio film, there would have been a reason. He would have said, I can't defect because of my grandfather. And then the grandfather would go to him and go, look, you must defect for the family. There's none of that. There's none of that. He, in a moment, just decides, you can see it in his eyes, I'm going to do this. I'm going to stay here with nothing but the clothes on my back and defect. So there's a funny antics-filled sequence through Bloomingdale's where the KGB's trying to get him, security guards are trying to get him because he's causing a disturbance, and he wants to defect, and so he defects to the security guard. And Maria Conchita Alonso in her debut film, she's gorgeous in this film. If you like Salma Hayek, I urge you to check out this, because she's very much in the same vein of just innocent and fun, and she's dancing, and a well-rounded character. And that's what makes her so appealing in this film. She's not just a one-note girl to be won. She has her own thoughts and dreams and stories. And the media makes a circus out of his defection. The government shows up, and the security guard who's been yelling at people, there's the big line of the movie is a New York City police officer who says, it's America. The KGB's like, he cannot do this. Is that more Italian? And the police officer says, it's New York. Man can do what he wants. It's a free country. And everybody goes, yeah, it's a big moment. And he has nowhere to go. And the government's like, well, we can't just turn you out into the streets. And that's when the security guard says, well, you can just come on with me, man. Let's go. And it's such a tender, real moment. And Vladimir ends up living with this African-American family, and it's just like what he left back home. There's a mom, a dad, a sister, a grandfather, and they sit around the table and they talk. And these are just really great character scenes. The movie is all about character because, again, there's no plot other than he has to defect to America and do something, I guess. You know, it's not Forrest Gump where he's going to invent something amazing or cause something's downfall. He's just a guy trying to have his life. Now, in defecting, he leaves behind his grandfather, his sister, his mother, his father, his girlfriend, and his best friend who watches from the bus as Vladimir flaps his wings and says, I'm the free bird you said you were going to be. And how did this happen? How did we flip? It's really poignant and very touching. He ends up with a Cuban lawyer who tells the story of his immigration. He floated from Cuba on a raft and ended up at a club. It's a very funny sequence. And then it's just the trials and tribulations of what it means to be an immigrant in America. And it's very touching of all the love and respect people have for this country and all of the things that they would do to get here. Practically everyone Vladimir meets is an immigrant who holds America up as this beacon of hope in the world. And it is, and it still is, and it always will be. Everybody wants to come to America. Why wouldn't you? You can sit in your car in America and do a podcast that you can then broadcast to the world free of charge. With all the freedoms that entails, I can say and do practically anything I want as long as it's legal here in America. He says that at the very end. I can do whatever I want as long as it's legal. I didn't think I was going to be affected by the movie so much, but coming off the heels of so much anti-American sentiment by Americans, seeing a movie that was unabashedly patriotic, told by outsiders, is a stunning achievement. And a movie that would never be made today. They would never make a movie this pro-American told by immigrants today. Because it wouldn't fit the narrative the media wants to spin on us. The media has to all be negative. America has to be this terrible place, and it isn't. It's a land of opportunity. And it's personified in the movie by the many jobs Vladimir gets. They show him as a busboy, McDonald's, a street salesman, a limousine driver who also sells pins and diet supplements and watches and anything you can do to make a buck in America. As long as you're willing to get up every day and hustle, the money is out there for those who want it to work hard for it. That's a great message to send to people. It's a message I got out of the movie. Nothing they throw at Vladimir phases him because he wants to make it in America. And he's going to make it. And he's helped by these amazing people who are in his life. And then he's able to get his own place and apply for citizenship, even though it's going to take years. And then he's there when his girlfriend, Maria Conchita Alonso, takes the oath of citizenship. It's not Vladimir taking the oath. In the context of the film, he never achieves it. It's somewhere down the line. We're not with him long enough for him to achieve that goal. But we see it achieved through his girlfriend and the pride in her face when she gives the oath. And how they talk about what it means and how important that it is. It makes you proud to be an American and to want to do good things for this amazing country that we live in. I wasn't sure how the movie was going to end. Because, again, there's no if you think of the overarching plot as he wants to be an American citizen, then I guess that's the plot. But he never achieves it in the film because that's not what it's about. This is truly a film that is not about the destination. It's about the journey. And the journey of all these people that he meets. And he's dealt a pretty bad hand at the end. They have, there's hardly any strife other than the KGB, who are played as almost cartoon characters. But they throw in strife at the end with, he gets invited to play on stage with a saxophone master of jazz, and he can't keep up. And the guy tells him off screen, keep practicing at it. And Vladimir's just destroyed and wants to get drunk. So him and his friend, the one who took him in, Leon, I think his name is, they have a drink on a couch on the side of the street, and his friend confesses to him that he has a kid that he's never met in his life. And Vladimir's like, you have to go. You have to make these relationships count. That's what we have in this world. And the guy ends up quitting his job and going to be with his son. It's really, really good. Vladimir professes his love for the girl and says, let's move in together. And she says no, that she's not ready for a commitment like that. And when he brings her roses, she won't take them. And he says, if I walk out, I'm not coming back. And she lets him walk. And it's very emotional because you think these characters are meant to be together. I should also mention that at 12 years old, having seen this movie in the theater, I wasn't aware that it had flashes of nudity in it, which is not a problem. If you grew up in the 80s, nearly every PG movie had breasts in it. That's just the way it went. But this one is different. There's a scene where he's helping her study for her citizenship test, and they're in the bathtub together, and she's topless. And I've seen a lot of sex scenes in a lot of movies, and very few, if any, look real at all. They rarely look as if the characters, the actors, truly care for each other. But man, the sequence of them in the bathtub was so real, you almost feel like a voyeur, like you shouldn't be watching this. It was played very well. I'm not sure how they got the actors to be that comfortable with each other. I should mention that this film has a full director's commentary, which I may put on in the background while I'm doing something just to listen to, because I would like to get Paul Mazursky's insight on how he managed to get that, because that's a rare thing in a film to get. A lot of actors are just not emotionally involved like that, but God, it looks like they're in love in this scene. It's very, very well done. So he's beaten down by not being able to play saxophone, which is, the guy even tells him, like, you're a classical music guy. You're not going to pick up jazz in a day. It ain't going to happen. And then it's compounded at the end when he gets mugged. He gets mugged by two street thugs, and he gets really pissed off. He's angry at them. He attacks one of them. They still manage to get away. And he says, they looked at me like they were animals. He says that in the movie. And his friend's like, look, man, you got to relax. His friend, it's the Cuban lawyer, because his friend has now left for Alabama for his son. This Cuban lawyer's like, you need a doctor? I'll take you to the doctor. No. Let's go get a coffee. So then almost the last scene is them in a diner having coffee. And Vladimir's in a state. He's high on adrenaline. He's eager to lash out at somebody. And he tries to pick a fight with this very big man across the way, who turns out to be Russian. And they have this really sweet moment of the shared experiences of leaving everything behind to pursue a dream in America. And everybody in the diner is an immigrant. And it comes off a little cloying for a movie that's been grounded in a lot of reality. But I was okay with it, because it was played very well. And you have to wrap up this esoterical story somehow. And the movie ends on some notes where Vladimir receives a letter. A guy visits, and it's a letter from his sister saying that his grandfather is gone. And basically, him deciding he has to move on. That going back to Russia is never going to happen. He's never going to see his family again. And he is now going to be an American. And right before it ends, because I felt like it was, a guy walks by with sparklers on Independence Day, and the camera holds on the hands holding the sparklers against the backdrop of, I guess, Brooklyn. And it feels like the credits are just going to roll. But the movie has one more gift to give. And we see Vladimir exit the bus. And I was like, oh yeah, he was on the bus at the beginning of the movie, so now he's exiting the bus. This is where he was going. You know, like Forrest Gump on the bench. And he's in the park, so he stops to get a hot dog. And the hot dog vendor is the KGB agent. And he says, I have to thank you. I couldn't go back to Russia. You made it so that I would have ended up in prison because I let one of the people under my charge defect. So I became an American citizen. It is this great country. And they have this weird, he's never going to be that guy's friend. Not after he threatened him that way. But an understanding of the decisions that we make and how they affect people and the choices that we make. And it ends with Vladimir writing a letter to his family saying he loves them and that he's an American and that he's free to do what he wants. And what he wants to do is he's going to play the sax at night, and during the day he's arrived at a park where he plays his instrument as a busker and people throw coins, and the movie just sort of pulls away. And we're left with Vladimir okay with being an immigrant, okay with being in America, and happy doing what he wants. I should mention that the girl comes back. She decides that she's not going to marry him, but that she's going to live with him. It's all really well done. I'm not a real big Paul Mazursky fan either. I've seen a few of his movies and I didn't get Down and Out in Beverly Hills or Moon Over Parador with Richard Dreyfuss. But this one's really good. And they don't normally let people make these movies in the 80s. These were made in the 70s. Movies about characters without full plots, where they're just moving through life. That's a 70s thing. That's an auteur thing. That's a movie made before Jaws, before Star Wars, before movies had to be one line. You know? It's a space movie. Star Wars. Killer shark movie. Jaws. They used to make movies like The Godfather, The Godfather 2, The Deer Hunter, Heaven's Gate even. Movies that are just Jeremiah Johnson. Movies that are just character, long, flowing movies where settle in, we're going to tell you this grand story or this very intimate story. But it's not going to be, a wacky movie about flubber or talking dogs. I wasn't sure I was going to like it. I fully expected to take the movie off 20 or 30 minutes in. And I almost did because, like I said, it does take a long time for something to happen. You're just being set up with Vladimir's story in Russia and his friend and the defection plan and and then it eases you in, like getting into a hot tub. You have to get in slowly, but once you get in there, you're going to like it. Moscow on the Hudson. What was my mother thinking sending me to this movie? She sent me to Arthur. She sent me to Moscow on the Hudson. There were a whole stack of movies I saw in the 80s, young, that I really shouldn't have been at. This one was really mismarketed. And with not with the nudity, but not even the nudity, the sensual nudity. Like, these people are having sex right on camera. That's a little odd, or they're getting ready to have sex. You should check this movie out. It's not bad. It's a pretty good film. And it does make you think about all the hardships that people go through to get here, to want to be here, Even in the last 4 years of craziness, people still wanted to come here. People still want to be Americans in the worst way. I've never stopped being patriotic. I've always been a patriotic. I was in the Boy Scouts. I had all my badges. I went to Jamboree. I haven't really talked about that, have I? Yeah, just a short period. I was doing anything to get away from the drunks. So Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts got me away from the drunks for this amount of time. Well, things are opening up, aren't they? Things are supposed to be getting to some semblance of normal. I certainly hope so. I will continue to do these shows from my car. And I like to do them in one take, but I didn't count on it being so darn hot. You know, with Texas under 12 feet of snow, it's odd to think that it's 80 degrees here. But it is 80 degrees in Texas today, too, so you can't ever predict what the weather's going to be. Isn't that what Doc Brown said? Too bad the post office isn't as efficient as the weather service. I guess he's saying the opposite there, right? Hey, thanks for tuning in. Have a great day, and thanks for all your support of this show as we continue to be 91 Reasons.
Thanks for listening to 91 Reasons. Please subscribe and leave a review on iTunes. Find us on Facebook. Is anyone even still listening?
For whatever reasons, Ray, call it fate, call it luck, call it karma. I believe that everything happens for a reason. I believe that we were destined to get thrown out of this dump.
For what purpose?
To go into business for ourselves.